game-changing discussions on the big ideas that shape our thinking. This is One2One.
Mr. Donald Duke, you obtained a law degree from Ahmadu Bello University in 1982, called to the bar in 1983, obtained a Master of Laws and LLM from the University of Pennsylvania in 1984. Extremely precocious in politics, done at the relatively tender age of 38. I know a little bit about that. But my father spent a lifetime in politics from a very young age. Now, thinking about other young reforming leaders like Tony Blair, Bill Clinton, the comeback kid, and his saxophone, we'll come back to that. Both Democrats and both lawyers, okay, just like you. And then thinking about what about founding fathers, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, also a lawyer. So, do you think, is there something about the law that offers distinct advantages or perhaps disadvantages to a life in politics? And while you're thinking about that, were there any particular figures, either locally or internationally, that served as an inspiration for you along this path?
I never thought I'd practice law. I never wanted to practice. I only did it because I'd run out of options. I wanted to study history. I felt if I did history, I would get a first class because I am good at storytelling.
Indeed.
And the thing about history, none of us were there, so I could give you my own views and tell you what I'm going to tell you. And but I was compelled to study law. After my first year in the study of law, it broadened my horizon. It's not about being a lawyer. The study of law is the horizon it broadens. It makes you think in a peculiar fashion. We don't do a lot of that here in Nigeria, but when you study law in a place like America, in Nigeria you study law to understand the law. In America, you study law to manipulate the law. That's what the essence of the study is. How do I manipulate this law to suit me or my client? But studying law broadened my vista. I saw things differently, you know. You look at two things. You look at something that you've always considered black. All of a sudden, no, there are different shades.
Yeah.
It's different, you know.
Might even be white.
It might be white. Depends on how you look at it, you know. So why would politicians or lawyers or people with a law background take to politics? Because in essence, you're there trying to tell people that the way this thing works shouldn't be this way, it should be the other way and all that. So you're always advocating for one thing or the other, you know. So it's easy, it's like fish to water. It's not limited to that. In political science is more of the history and nuances of politics, and there's a lot of history in political science. Someone like Awolowo, who studied commerce, which is economics basically, for his first degree and ended up doing law. That law gave him the confidence, you know, and that's something that law does for you. Unfortunately, here, the method of teaching doesn't give you as much. But I'll tell you this, after a year in the United States, I felt I could take on the world because of the way the law was taught. That's what law does for me, able to see things from a different perspective.
So Nigeria, this country, the most populous black nation on the planet, we have our problems, do we not? Epileptic power supply, corruption, the Japa syndrome, all manner of problems. But there are those who would say to you and to me that, you know, these are the normal growing pains that a developing society is expected to go through. What do you say to people who espouse those views?
At the onset of this discuss, we talked about the Princeton challenge where you do some peer review. There's nothing new on the face of the earth. So how did this society or its people solve this problem, all that? So that we don't have to repeat history each and every time. That's what it's all about. The problem we have in governance in Nigeria is that we don't think through problems.
Problems, yes.
We throw money at problems. And as long as you throw money at problems, it's like throwing paper at fire to douse the fire.
Yeah.
You only inflame it because the fire needs more of the fire, of the paper, to continue to stay alive.
We don't think through our problems.
We don't think through a problem.
Correct.
So you understand, look at power. Essentially, Nigeria is an energy nation. If we have a billion barrels of oil, we have the equivalent in gas 100-fold.
Sure.
Right? This country for over 40 years was flaring 2.5 billion cubic feet of gas daily. 2.5. Now, to conceptualize what 2.5 billion cubic feet of gas is, it's equivalent to 25 million liters of diesel.
Wow.
So if you had a power plant that could power all of Africa, it wouldn't consume 25 million liters of diesel. Nigeria was flaring that daily for over 40 years and still does, largely. Now, I also have another philosophy, that everything that is essential must be local. So water is essential for my livelihood. I must find a way to produce it locally.
Absolutely.
Education is essential. So the schools must be around me. Primary and secondary schools must be in my locality. Markets are essential. So they must be in my neighborhood, right? Today, in today's world, churches are essential. Or the churches have made themselves essential. So they are in the neighborhood. Anything that is essential must be local.
Must be local.
Power is essential. You cannot generate power in Sokoto and transmit it to Lagos. In the over 1,000 kilometer route, there are bound to be breakages, either in the pipeline or this or that. So you've got to localize power generation and distribution. The beauty of Nigeria is that while we're a large, populous nation, in terms of landmass, we're relatively small. So you could have a gas pipeline 5,000 kilometers, you've covered all of Nigeria. You couldn't do that in Brazil. You couldn't do that in India. You couldn't do that in Canada. Canada is so humongous, you know? But so you have this potentially captive market, over 200 million people. The landmass is not that expansive, so you could put gas everywhere. And say, for instance, in every senatorial district, there must be gas. Put a turbine there to generate, to cover just that area. So you don't have what we call a national breakdown. That is a security problem. The whole country is in darkness. If there's a breakdown, it's localized. It's not national, right? So if we're going to govern this country properly, we need to localize all essentials.
Yes.
That's why you have to localize policing. You can't post DPOs from different parts of the country to come and administer. They don't understand the language. They cannot interact. They're only going to be there for 2 or 3 years. Their families are elsewhere. So half the time they're distracted. Then the other half, they're trying to learn their new environment. No. Half of policing is intelligence gathering. I cannot gather intelligence if I'm not intimate with the environment. The only 20% of policing is enforcement. Yes. And even enforcement is a failure of intelligence, right? Because you have to be proactive.
Yes.
Okay? So that's part of the problems we have. How we do it, when we can do it. I mean, even in my university, we had university police, right? That knew the university in and out. Then we had the city police. Then we had the state police. Then you had the FBI, which is a national thing. So we need to find out how it's done. It's done in Brazil. It's done in India. It's done in those places. How did they do it? That's peer review. Coming back to the flaring of gas. We flare so much gas. What stops us to say, okay, for the next 10 years, gas will be given at 10 cents per cubic feet, as against $4 or $5 that we're doing today. That will be our subsidy, because things are so tough in this country. You need to subsidize someone here and there. But is it really a subsidy? The real subsidy is the infrastructure to gather and distribute. Or the gas, you're flaring it.
Wasting it.
So why not give it to people?
Yeah.
So they have some respite. Today, I know how much even the rich are weeping, paying for electricity bills, right? So our industries are crumbling, mainly because of electricity bills. If most of them are not on the grid, most of them are on using private power, diesel and all that. It's expensive. And if you want your goods to be internationally competitive, you must find a way of calibrating the cost of production. And the major cost of production for any enterprise, particularly in a country, probably a third or a quarter of the price is energy. If you were able to give gas for next to nothing because you flare it as a policy, calibrate it for the first 10 years. At the time, China's attraction was cheap labor. It's no longer that cheap. But in the process, they have developed the industry, right? So they attracted a lot of manufacturing from the Western world, particularly the United States, into China for manufacturing because of cheap labor, cheap skilled labor, right? But today, they're skilled, but the labor is not that cheap any longer. So why not use what you've got to get what you want?
Infrastructure.
You have the infrastructure. Use what you've got to get what you want. We have energy, we have gas, we're flaring it, make it available, right? So if you're manufacturing, whatever you're manufacturing, folks would come from China, from all over the world to manufacture in Nigeria because energy is literally free. Then you have an added advantage. We all look at the American market because it's the biggest consumer market in the world. You have AGOA, right? So AGOA allows manufactured goods in certain countries get into the United States without tariff. If manufacturing were cheaper because the energy cost has been taken care of, we will be a net exporter in this country. So for me, the problem we have is we do not think through problems. We just throw money at it. So if I say, for instance, there's no light on the street, and we can fix it, we need 20 million naira. Why isn't there light? What is the problem? Why is this? We've got to articulate why do we have this particular problem. So that's a big failure of governance in our country. And so in my state, for instance, when we were there, it didn't cost us that much because we would think of a problem, we would find an answer to it. Money was just a catalyst, not the solution.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Talk to me about education, your involvement, your philosophy, where you think we ought to be going in this country in terms of education.
Sadly, we pay lip service to it, to the things that matter. Education itself is an industry and ought to be an industry in Nigeria because there's so many people who have the basic education and who could be teaching others, right? So you could employ millions on the short term in the teaching field. In Cross River, to entice people to it, we took our teachers off the tax break. Teachers were no longer paying taxes. So if you earned, let's say for ease of argument, 100,000 naira a month, tax will probably take about 30,000 from you. Then we give you 10,000 if you're in the urban area, 20,000 if you're in the rural area as allowances. So we literally doubled the salary.
Effectively, it's that salary.
Yes. Yeah. And the doctors wanted the same thing. Everywhere wanted, we said, no, the teachers taught the doctors, so don't go there. But we also put some conditions. Every 2 years, I think, or 3 years, you've got to get a recertification, go through a recertification program, which is an exam, which was handled by University of Ibadan.
Right.
If you fail twice, you lose your license to teach.
2 strikes.
You get it, 2 strikes, you're out. They didn't like that, but I said, it's either or. We either go back where you pay all the taxes and nothing, or you accept this. The second thing is that your advancement in your career as a teacher, right, is tied onto the performance of your students. So if you're a physics teacher and at school said 80% of the students you taught don't pass, you're not going to get promoted.
That is very important.
So you have a stake,
yes,
right, in ensuring that the students So my philosophy, my policy was that there are no bad students. There are only bad teachers. Because teaching is personal. So we did a survey. We required not more than, I think, 20 students in a class in primary school, not more than 2 arms. Maybe at the end of the day, maybe 300 students in a primary school. In a secondary school, 30 in a class, 3 arms to the class, 6 classes, 540 students. So we found out we needed to build about 200 more secondary schools, right? I think primary school, there are a lot more than that. So we started doing a lot of that. But the essence was the interface between the teachers and the students. Those are the formative years. Absolutely. You need to, it's like having a child. The intimacy between the teacher and the student, right? And that's why Sokoto, Federal Government College Sokoto was a great experience for me. First of all, your teachers knew who you were. They'll talk to you. They would call you after school like, this is your weak point. Donald, you're weak in physics because you don't pay attention to mathematics and this and that, But when in Cross River, I went to Hope Waddell. Hope Waddell Institute is one of the oldest schools in Nigeria. Has famous alumnus, folks like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Academy Biam, and all those guys. They went there. The first class I walked into had over 100 students. The teacher was doing his own thing, the students were doing their own thing. And the government, had forcibly acquired all these so-called missionary schools. Not to enhance them, but in the concept of egalitarianism, that all schools should be equal, and these missionary schools are elitist. So the schools like St. Gregory's College, St. Finbarr's and all that, they wanted all of them to be like Government College Agege. Look, to me that was wrong. We aspire. So let Government College Agege aspire to be like a St. Gregory's College. So don't bring down St. Gregory's College to be like Government College Agege, because you are now trying to bring down everyone because of your own inability. In Singapore, most people go to public schools, because the schools are damn good.
Yes.
So I went there, then I went to another school called Merino, and the same thing. I decided the first policy I would have is education, is hand the schools back.
Yeah.
Right? We took the schools, we paid no compensation to them, right? We reduced the schools to nothing, take back the schools, we paid them some form of compensation. We had a problem with the NUT, the Nigerian Union of Teachers, because they didn't want to leave. We said, okay, fine, keep the teachers for another 2-3 years, right? Because even the missionaries themselves were not ready to take the schools. You can't charge fees on students who came into the school on the basis of free education. But that set, once they leave, the new set coming in, you can charge.
Fair enough.
So that schools are working well. Hope Waddell is back. They're even thinking of twinning with the Calabar College. There's a school in Jamaica called the Calabar College. It is the equivalent of, say, King's College, right? It was started by a missionary who came from Calabar, right? So he named the school Calabar College. That's where the big leaders that produced several prime ministers. When P.J. Patterson was Prime Minister of Jamaica, and he learned I was from Cross River, and I told him about Calabar. I said, I went to Calabar College. So I tried to arrange a twinning program between the school, Calabar College, and Hope Waddell. But education must be given the pride of place. You must ensure that there's actual reward. They say the teacher's reward is in heaven. No, let's bring it back to earth. Right? But the curriculum is what is more important. The curriculum is faulty. We tweak around the curriculum. We're not made it a skill-based curriculum. You must introduce certain things. You must take out certain things. Who cares when the butterfly was found? Who cares what color the butterfly? It doesn't matter, right? In today's world, you need to sit down and design a curriculum for the 21st century. So coding should be part of our curriculum. In primary or secondary school, they teach you how to code, right? AI, you must learn those things. That's a language. Yes, because you have to read, English is important. But if I want to be a musician, why do I need to study mathematics? And if I fail mathematics, I can't do our music. So you've got to, education is personal. You've got to look at it You can't have, this is the way we go about it for everything. Now, on my medical university, at the age of 50, I stopped being governor. I wasn't 45, almost 45 when I stopped being governor. But I was young, and I said to myself, I need to start giving back, program my mind to giving back to society. There was a piece of land I bought in Calabar. It started this way. In just about 5 minutes from the airport, but along the river, very idyllic land. And in my young brain, I was 30 years old, I was going to build a beautiful estate and all that. I bought that land for 150,000 naira, and it was about 47 hectares of land. The villagers thought they cheated me. I thought I cheated them, so we're both happy, right? But I didn't use it for anything because the economics didn't work. Even as governor, I didn't even bother putting any infrastructure and all that. But it's just 5 minutes from the airport, and the airport is a city airport. So then it came to me that, look, why don't you build a school? My wife has a women and children hospital in Calabar. She's not a doctor, but just something she wanted to do to give back. I said, let's take it to the next level. Build a medical university. As things work, I just happened to stumble across the executive secretary, NUC, and he brought up the idea. I said, I've been thinking about it, but I keep on saying when I grow up. He said, grow up to what? Yeah, I said, I'm not there yet. I can't afford it. He said, well, start it. Just start. Yeah. I said, I don't want to start and stop. He said, just start. Let's get the license and all that. Then, on the other hand, I met a gentleman who came here. He wanted to establish a cancer center. A Swedish guy. He had established one many years ago in Ghana and found out that most of his clients come from Nigeria. So he felt he should establish one in Nigeria. And we happened to meet at a breakfast meeting somewhere. And he was, can we do this? And he wanted me to introduce him to the folks in Lagos State. He wanted land in Las, and they would fund and build a cancer center there, similar to what they have, I think, in Luth. Yes. That didn't work. So in their frustration, they asked me, do you have land anywhere near an airport that we can build it? So I said to them, I'm thinking of this medical thing. I said, look, let's build a cancer center. It's a medical center, and the teaching hospital is just a classroom in a hospital. That's what it is. So I'm partnering with them to do this. I've got the license for what is called the Duke Medical University, and I'll be working with a group called the Scandinavian Care out of Sweden. I don't want to own it. Far from it. It's not an ego thing, and it's not for profit. It's something to give back, and that's why I'm doing medicine. That's an area of need. It would have been easier to do law or do anything. I can call it the Duke Law School, if it was an ego trip, right? And I could start the Duke Law School tomorrow because you get registered. Absolutely. And, there are lawyers to teach and all that. Medical, the equipment and all that. I can't do it on my own. So we're working and looking for partners to work together, and to make sure we have a first-class medical school, because our country is hemorrhaging so much. Absolutely. In the field of medicine, whether it is nurses or doctors or medical technique, in the entire spectrum of medicine, we're using too much. That adage in the Bible, he that does not have, even that which he has will be taken away from him. And he that has, right, more shall be added on to him. That is the situation in Nigeria when it comes to our manpower. We're losing too much. We're hemorrhaging. And our elite population, again, is spoiling everything. And they want to go for check their health, just a pure medical check. They want to go abroad. A friend of mine the other day said he has a toothache and that he's going to London. He has an appointment.
Toothache?
Yeah, toothache. I said, but what about this guy here? What about this guy? They're fantastic.
Amazing.
I said, this guy handles the American embassy. He does this. He said, no. Toothache. Already go for toothache. I said, are you taking? He said, no. He just wants to feel a cavity. So we are so. It's almost criminal wickedness because there are implications. I give you an implication of something we do. We all want to fly British Airways. We want to fly the international flights and all that. We pay horrendous sums, right? Some people find it cheaper to take a flight from Accra to London, which is the same time than Lagos, man. And we don't ask ourselves that at the end of the day, yes, we pay more naira to the airline, but the airlines are going to take the equivalent in foreign exchange from the government.
Absolutely.
So the government has to get involved and say, you can't charge this. You must charge the same amount as you charge in Ghana. We have the uniform rates around. It has to be based on length of time and distance. You can't come in here and get us to subsidize the operations of other countries. Because at the end of the day, it's not the individual is paying. Yeah, he pays, but you get a commensurate amount from. So the country is bleeding. We don't think far. We're very shallow.
Short-term.
Very short-term and all that, When did you last see a top government official in what we call public transport, going by an aero flight or airpiece? They all go on private jets.
Private jets, that's right.
We live a lie. So you're a governor, you're going from Port Harcourt or Calabar to Abuja, a private jet comes to pick you. First of all, you're hurting yourself because you can't sustain it when you leave office. Secondly, how do you know if the country is working or not?
Yeah, if you're so insulated and so aloof. Yeah. Amazing. Again, we're back to the responsibility of the elite. But let me come to your administration, cited by the BBC in 2006 as one of a small handful of state governments that were in good standing with anti-corruption watchdogs. How difficult was it to establish and sustain that culture during your tenure as a governor? And also, how important are those values and attributes of integrity, transparency, openness? How important are those to good governance?
At the onset of this conversation, I said to you, the plunge into politics was idyllic, pure idealism, what to be rather than what is. And I also grew up in a family in a public service background. I remember my father many, many years ago. My father's passed on 35 years ago, 36 years now. And one evening we were talking and he said, Donald, I see you going into public service. Make sure you bequeath the values of my name as I have to you. He was head of customs for 9 years and he was squeaky clean. He lived within his means. And I grew up seeing public office for what it is. It's not you. When you see people swarming around you, it's the office, not you. The moment you're not sitting on that chair, you won't find them again. But all you have at the end of the day is your name. Yes. Yesterday I saw a publication of 58 governors from my time. Some of them have passed, published by the EFCC, stating that they have cases with the EFCC. They've not been tried, but their names are there, 58 of them. Some of them have passed. So they will never have the opportunity to defend themselves.
Tainted.
Yeah. There. Right? And I look at it and, I could have been mighty well off if I did some of the things they did. But, I'm not in want either. And sometimes these things we acquire become a burden for us. Okay? You want to acquire so much so that you become independent. You don't need anybody. It doesn't work that way. Enjoy as much as you can, but not much more than you can. We take so much. Now, as governor, you don't have the concerns of transport, concerns of accommodation, concerns of feeding. It's even different. In the United States, you've got to feed yourself, right? They provide transport and accommodation, but if I have friends over in the White House, they'll bill you, right? They have an office for that. Here, I could have a huge party. The state will pay. So why not just focus on the work that you have to do, right? And I used to tell my commissioners, because I said, don't go into this thing where you say, integrity will go chop, right? this platform, use it as one that will open doors for you when you leave office. Money is transient. You can go into one transaction and lose everything. But the network this office affords you
Absolutely.
is the real wealth.
Absolutely.
It is your real wealth. That is it. And if you tarnish your name, right, nobody will want to deal with it. This same corrupt Nigeria, they'll say, I know my this one, no mind him. It's all that you have. So that was my philosophy. Then a year to the conclusion of my term, when I was winding down, this was 2006, I invited top audit firms to audit our entire, by then it was 7 years in office, forensically, check everything. Because while you're in office, you can address the problems. The moment you leave office, you cannot address it. So in the course of the forensic audit, you'll find that there's some shortfalls. Certain things have not been retired. Some amounts are there, still hanging. We'll call you, even if you're no longer in the cabinet, I will call you, we'll retire. The permanent secretary will retire that amount. And we published everything. So, did the EFCC come to Cross River State? Yes, they did. We gave them the books. Go look at it. Everything from the day we entered on the 29th of May, 1999, right through to the end, everything was audited forensically. So we had stocks, every ministry, every government department, and all that. And that is accountability. Why? Because I didn't want to be called by anybody to ask a question. So it's there. So governor's office, the chief of staff, have you audited what went through? Everything was so it was so detailed. We had KPMG. We had 2 audit firms from Calabar. We had KPMG as the lead, and the Auditor General's office, Cross River State Auditor General's office. So everything was there. But that's what we should do. It's embarrassing when governors who are technically heads of the state are being called by folks who wouldn't dare speak to them, right, when they were in office, and given a sheet of paper to start writing how you did this, how you did that. It's embarrassing.
Right, so you shut down Cross River State for an entire month in December. Tell me about the rationale behind that, cancelling Christmas.
We came to realize that, look, the season of December, which is the driest month of the year, was also the cultural and festive calendar of the year. So you have Christmas, but leading on to Christmas, all the masquerades and all those things you hear about in cultural things in Calabar. And we were able to create a festive calendar, right, from the midnight of the 30th of November or the 31st, how many days of November, I'm not sure now. We flagged off the Christmas holiday from that day. And every day we had a concert, we had one thing or the other, and this was attracting people from all over, let me not say the world, but from everywhere you can think about. People chose Nigeria, the diaspora decided that this is the best time to come, and they want to attend the carnival. So the carnival was on Boxing Day. Christmas Day is Christmas Day, nothing happened. But on the 24th of December, there was something. We had concerts from artists around the world and Nigerian artists. I mean, people like Dibanj and so many artists were discovered over the Christmas, we called it a Christmas festival.
Right.
I remember when Lucky Dube came to play. He had been invited to Nigeria several times. And each time they wanted to stiff him. They were telling him, when you come, we'll pay you and all that. But when we decided to bring back, it was actually my wife that put it together, and I must give her credit for the festival. We paid him up front, so he was obliged to come. But he had an attitude. Came in and said, well, I'll only play for 2 hours and all that. So we said, okay, we'll keep you at the last. You'll be the last gig. We had 2 other gigs before he came on stage. So he came on stage about 2 a.m. or about past 1. And he started playing. And he was stunned. The stadium was filled. Now, the Calabar Stadium is a 25,000 stadium arena. But the entire bleachers were filled. Then the field was filled. So you would just have the stadium, the stage right in the middle, well illuminated and everybody. So it was just a sea of heads. And I was there, watching. And he started playing. And everyone was singing along with him. He never knew his songs were so well known. So after 2 hours, I asked my aide to go to him and say, look, listen, with this crowd, I have to ferry you out of this place, so get ready. So the guy goes to him, comes back and says, oh God, he says he's in the spirit. He's not going anywhere.
Anywhere.
Go, I spent another hour or so and left him. He played until daybreak. The next morning at noon, he came over to see me and I asked him, how was it? He said, it's the best concert I have ever had. And I'm glad I was here. A few weeks later, he was dead. But I'm glad he had that concert.
Yeah.
He was shot in Joburg. So you see, it sounded strange that you shut down a state for a whole month. But we lost nothing. Not in terms of revenue, not in terms of services. The state ran and functioned properly. So sometimes, the fear of the unknown holds us back. I mean, some of my colleagues will call me like, how can you guys go on holiday for 1 month? Everybody's missing it. I mean, if you're in the fire service, you still come to work. That's essential. If you're police, that's essential. If you're medical, that's essential. The schools are on holidays, but pushing files back and forth, you're not an essential worker. So in a ministry, maybe you have a ministry of 1,000 staff, they find that they only need 100 at that period. So 900 have gone.
Essential workers stay behind.
Stay back, that's it. Of course, the heads of the ministry, the commissioners, right? They come to work, the perm secretary comes to work and all that. But everybody just go on holidays and all that. So it worked beautifully and we didn't miss anything. And it also enhanced that festive notion, that festive environment, that festive atmosphere. It really enhanced it. One day he was playing at the shrine. And he goes, it sounded good to me, but a guitar was off. I didn't know. He walks up, tunes the guitar as the guy is playing, and of course gives him a slap after that. He was a disciplinarian.
For more information about this program and other episodes, visit us on YouTube and on one2oneshow.com. One2One is available as a podcast on Spotify, Apple, Podbean, and a variety of podcast platforms.